Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy, and today we're going to be talking about breakups. This video is for anyone that's thinking about breaking up with someone, that's midway going through a breakup, is the breakuper or the breakupee. This is for anyone that's in a toxic relationship or getting out of a toxic relationship, or someone that is breaking up with someone that's really nice. We're going to be talking about it from the breakuper standpoint, the breakupee standpoint, and we're going to talk about a healthy way to break up, the do's and the don'ts of how to get through breaking up, because breaking up is hard to do. But before we get into today's video, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Missy and I am a I am a life and relationship coach, and on this channel we get to the root of the issue and we learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of the fam, and if you already are a subscriber, I appreciate you so much. Also, if you are interested in any of my coaching services, I will leave it in the link down below, which you can go ahead and check out. Let's get into today's video. So one thing you have to keep in mind when it comes to breaking up is that at one point you really cared for this person. And when we get into the breakup stage, we can get into that very hurt stage, and then we will want to lash out, make the other person feel how we feel, that hurt. Or maybe we're very resentful and all of this aggression from things in the relationship come out. So you really want to be aware of what you're saying, and don't say something you don't mean. And I know that's hard when you're in your emotions. You just naturally like bam, you just say whatever you feel. But the problem is when you say something that you don't mean, one, it will lose its credibility. Like for instance, you say, I'm never going to talk to you again, then you talk to them. It makes the other person lose respect for you and your word. And then your word kind of becomes a joke of like, oh yeah, they said that before. I know it doesn't mean anything. Or you say something really hurtful that you later regret. There's that, and then there's also, you don't want to play mind games. You don't want to play any type of game, because one, that's really exhausting, and two, it just puts you in a really bad place. Because when it comes to mind games, maybe you'll get a little bit of that feeling of, ha, I got them, but then it's really just you're hurting, really, and it's an unhealthy way to deal with your hurt. So you don't want to go down into that negative place and that negative level, and that really hurts your growth in general. So you want to be empathetic, and you want to put yourselves in each other's shoes. You want to try to imagine, okay, this person that broke up with me, I wonder how they feel. Or this person that's getting broken up with, I wonder how, what they're experiencing. Which we're going to go a little bit into that now. So let's talk about the breakuper. So as the breakuper, you are the one who probably has been thinking about this decision for a while. Now the problem with that is sometimes you won't get the courage to do it until there's an emotional outburst, and maybe you're not even ready to do that, and then you'll take it back, and then it becomes this back and forth. So you don't want to do it emotionally, and again, not saying what you don't mean. If you're having this feeling that you want to break up, you need to think about it for a little while and consider, okay, like what are the reasons why? Is it possible for a reconciliation? Like is there a possibility that you can get that spark again? Like what are really the core issues? Or are there deal breakers where it's not reconcilable? You have to kind of sit with yourself and figure out this decision. Take your time with this decision. It can be a big decision, and like I said, you don't want that back and forth of emotionally making that decision just because you got in a big fight. Because what happens is it turns into that cycle of like getting back together and then breaking up and then getting back together. You don't want to be in that cycle. It's a huge emotional roller coaster. So take some time to think about it. Now, when you are the breakuper, it's important that you have a conversation. You owe them that much, because they were someone that was your everything at one point. They're owed a conversation about what went wrong, what happened. So explain why, explain what the issues are, and don't try to make them feel better. That's the worst thing you could do, is when you're hurting them and then trying to make them feel better. No, there's no way to make someone feel better that's getting broken up with. That's not your job. So don't try to make them feel better. Allow them to be upset and hurt or whatever it is. Just be like, you know what, I know it sucks, I know you're upset, and you're allowed to be upset. Just allow them to have their feelings. Now let's talk a little bit about like more of a toxic relationship or with a narcissistic person. You don't owe them any explanation. Actually, it's better to keep it to the bare minimum of going just no contact or minimum contact. Don't explain anything, because then they're just gonna use that as a way to manipulate you and use that information as a way to become that person that you say is, you become the person that you want them to be. And they're going to go through all the problems that you've listed and try to fix them. So you don't want to do that with a narcissistic person. You only want to do this with someone where it was healthier. Now, if you're breaking up with someone that's nice, don't feel bad or shame yourself or guilt yourself over it. Just because they're nice doesn't mean that it works out. They could have a lot of great qualities about them, but sometimes your values don't line up. Sometimes the timing's wrong. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Love isn't always enough. So don't guilt yourself or feel terrible if you're breaking up with someone that's good. You don't feel it. Maybe you fell out of love, whatever the reasoning, it's okay. Also, as the breakuper, there may be this feeling that you want to string them along, or maybe there is a sense that's confused. Don't be confused. Make your decision, one or the other. Either you stick to being with them or you stick to breaking up with them. Don't, promise a future, anything like that. Say, I don't know what it is, but right now I can't give you myself, so we're done. Or you decide, okay, let's work on these things, but don't be in the middle. That's not fair to them. And also, I know it feels like an ego boost, but it's not fair to have them waiting. That hurts their mental health. So many people have gotten caught waiting for someone to want them again, that they've wasted time in their lives when they could have been doing other things. So don't do that to them, especially because you have a very strong hold on them as the breakuper, because it's a very vulnerable time when they really want you. If maybe they do, some people, it's a mutual decision, but be aware of that. Now, if you are someone that you already broke up, some things that you will experience is you probably will experience some regret or fears of regretting it, of like, oh no, what if I regret breaking up with this person? And that's very natural. It's natural to think about your decisions and worrying about regretting it. So when you think about that, just think, okay, well, if I were really to get back with this person, how would I feel? Would all the problems be resolved? Probably not. So that shows that it was probably a good decision on your end. Or if you were with a toxic person, you can go through all of the unhealthy things, because as time goes on and you're away from that person, our brains like to forget the negative and remember the positive. So you can just remind yourself, oh yeah, these are all the negative things that have happened, and this is why I do not want to go back. And you also, with that, may have this feeling that you want them back. That's very natural. It doesn't necessarily mean that you want them back. One reason why you may want them back is because you're lonely, or you were one with this person at one point, and so you really miss their company. There was obviously good things about them, so you may miss those things, but just because there were positive things doesn't necessarily mean that they were right for you or they were healthy for you. So just keep that in mind. It's natural to maybe want them back, but you have to really decide, do you really want to make that work? Is your wanting them a good enough reason to go back to them, or is it just a moment in time where you're feeling lonely, or maybe you're missing something? And then another thing you will experience is the guilt. You are the one that's making that decision, and when you are the one that's making the decision, you feel bad. You could feel like you're doing something wrong. That's natural. You don't have to feel guilty. Especially, you may feel guilty again if they're nice, or even if they're going through something. Maybe they're going through something rough. You don't have to stick around for someone just because they're going through health issues or going through a loss or whatever it is. You don't have to force yourself to be there just because they're experiencing something that's rough. And you may feel that guilt of like, I feel terrible that I want to leave. It's okay if you want to leave. I know some people may have a different opinion and then be like, oh, you should always stick around. No, you shouldn't make yourself miserable. That's really bad for your mental health to stick around and be miserable just because someone's going through something negative. They will have other people to rely on, which I'll talk a little bit more on the do's and the don'ts. Now, obviously, you don't want to do it in a brutal way. You can do it in a compassionate way where you're not a jerk or a dick about it. And you can just be like, listen, I know you're going through a hard time and I'm sorry, but I don't think it's healthy for us to continue this relationship just because I want to be there for you. We need more. That is a more compassionate way to break up with them. Don't be dick and be like, no, I can't do this and leave. Like, now, as the breakupee, which is another tough position to be in. You are the one that's not making the decision, so you will feel extremely rejected. There's going to be this deep pain and this hurt, and not to say that the breakuper is not feeling the pain, but it's a different pain because they made the decision, they're committed to their decision. And then there's you who maybe you didn't want that decision, you weren't ready for that type of explosion, that type of decision, and so it will feel this extremely deep pain. Maybe you were more in love with them than they were in love with you, so it may affect the way that you feel about yourself. Maybe you'll feel unlovable, maybe it'll affect your self-worth, maybe you'll see them move on quickly, and that is a real dagger in the heart and the stomach. You also may isolate, or you may be afraid of dating again or loving people in general. And that's something that happened to me when I went through my very first breakup, which that was a mess in itself. I remember feeling a knot in my stomach for like 5 months. It was really painful. I lost a lot of weight. It affected the way that I ate. Like, it messed me up. And I remember at the time, I was a teenager, and I remember at that time my cousin actually had texted me. She said, "I'm sorry," I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said, "I'm sorry that you're experiencing this, and I wish that there were words that I could say that could take away the pain, but unfortunately there are no words to take away the pain." And that stuck with me, and I was like, she's right. There are no words to take away this pain. When you feel that deep pain, you may want to talk about a lot. You may do things to try to make the pain go away. That's what I did. Any person that would listen, which is very abnormal for me because I'm not a big talker, I would just talk about what happened because I wanted to get this pain off. But it didn't matter. Nothing anyone could say could make the pain go away. So unfortunately, there is that pain of that rejection and that pain of losing this person. There's also that sense of feeling out of control or feeling like it's not fair because you were the one that didn't make that decision. You may immediately be like, you know, I want this to work, this is not fair, I want to fight for this. But that person may not be on the same page, so you might feel like there's a loss of control. Your world has kind of turned upside down. And so, like I was saying, you may get this urge to get them back. You'll get into desperation mode. Maybe you will try to make changes about yourself so that they will like you again. Maybe you will plead with them, you will beg with them, or you may go on the opposite spectrum where you become very spiteful. Maybe you will go and hook up with people, or maybe you will go in a relationship immediately to, you know, deal with that feeling of not having them, hoping that if you're with someone else, they'll immediately see you as desirable again. Which I would definitely say one of the worst things you could do is definitely getting with someone. They would say, you know, to get over someone, you gotta go under someone. No, that doesn't help. It just deepens the pain, or it gives you a temporary pleasure, a temporary relief, but then it's still there. Also, you don't want to go into spite mode where you light their clothes on fire or whatever, and maybe you're messaging their new partner and you're just getting messy. That's never a good place. You never want to be that person. Even if they cheated, screw them. The best thing you can ever do if someone has screwed you over or left you for someone else is to do better. That drives them insane. Because when someone breaks up with someone, their ego is like, oh, I kind of want them to beg for me back. And when you don't, they're like, what happened? Am I not that desirable? What is this? And so that's why it's the best thing you could do is not let it affect you. Just be like, okay, even if you want them back, make it seem like it doesn't affect you, and that will drive them crazy. You want to be the person where it's like, oh my god, like she's doing, or he or she's doing amazing, even if maybe you're not, and that's okay. That's not anyone's business except for you and your friends and family. But to the outside world, they don't have to know. You don't want anyone to ever have that strong hold on you where they make you go to a bad, negative place. You want to be above that. And the last thing as the breakupee is that you may be shocked. You maybe didn't expect it. There's some people that are like, it was so perfect, I never saw it coming. Like, what the hell is this? You feel blindsided because you thought it was perfect. But then later on you realize there was some cracks in the relationship, but at that time you were blinded by love. And then there's other people that are completely filled with resentment and pain and hurt from the breakup. They resent the person for leaving them, especially if maybe they were leaving them at a bad time, or they made them feel abandoned, maybe they ghosted them. All of those things can be really painful and it can stick in your mind for a long time. Okay, now that we talked about what it's like on either end, the breakuper and the breakupee, let's talk about the do's and the don'ts of, you know, going through a healthy breakup, which I think it can be easier to go through a healthy breakup when you see both sides of what it's like. It's the breakuper and the breakupee. Everyone has their opinion of what's easier, but I feel like they're both pretty rough to go through. No one wants to go through a breakup. So the first thing is I'd 100% recommend is go no contact, especially within the first month. Even if you want them back, most people, when they want to reconcile their relationships, they think, oh, I have to stick around and I have to show them I'm good. But no, it actually has the opposite effect. It's becoming a nuisance. They don't want the relationship and you're just trying to force it on them. No one wants to be forced into liking someone. So you want to disappear. The relationship is dead. You don't want that relationship anyways. There were things that are wrong, but you have to figure out what was wrong. So even if there is any type of hope of reconciling, stop talking and take the time to focus on what went wrong. You want to identify, what did they do wrong in the relationship? What did you do wrong in the relationship? And how can you fix this? Whether you're in the relationship with them in the future or you're in a relationship with someone else in the future. That's one of the first things that actually saved me. Is when I went through my breakup, the first thing I did is I looked up, how do I win this person back? And I actually found this forum that saved my life. And they were like, if you want to reconcile, you have to stop talking to them, go no contact, act like you don't care, and focus on yourself. And you know what happened is eventually, you know, the people on the forum, they either fixed the thing so they got back together with their ex, or they actually didn't care anymore, and they realized that the relationship wasn't for them. Maybe they realized they were a jerk, or they realized that their values didn't line up. They were able to, the whole point is to really just put the focus on yourself and stop focusing so much on the obsession of getting that person back. So that's why you don't want to focus on trying to win them back and just accept the relationship is dead. When you go to them, you want to be a changed person. And I don't mean to be a completely different person where you've molded them into who they want. No, I mean like you've worked on some of the issues in the relationship. And of course, I would want someone that had a healthier partner to use this advice, but wanting to be with a toxic person is a real thing. The trauma bond is a real thing, and this advice of focusing on yourself, it still works the exact same. Hopefully by the end you'll realize that you don't want this person, but focus less on wanting to be with this person and focus more on yourself and your own self-love and your own healing journey. But I definitely advise, don't try to get back together with someone that was abusive or hurt you. I don't want to see that happen. And not only do you want to work on yourself, but you also want to find yourself again. Because when you're in a relationship with someone, you kind of lose yourself. You guys meld into one person and you guys have picked up the pieces for each other, and so you want to separate that. And you probably will feel this void when they do leave or when you're not around them so much. So you want to fill that void again with that self-love, with taking care of yourself, with identifying some of your problem areas, with learning from the relationship, with finding yourself again, with focusing on your own goals, your future. Maybe you forgot about yourself and you weren't focusing on your future. You want to focus on your own hobbies, your own interests, your own likes, all those things. Maybe your self-worth has been a little bit low. You want to focus on those things. And it can also be really helpful to go to the gym during this time. For one, it releases those endorphins, and two, it's something to work towards. And then the next thing that's super hard for most people and why they try to distract themselves and avoid it is feel your feelings. It doesn't have to be all day long, 24/7. Just take some moments during the day when you're feeling sad and just allow those feelings to come out. When I went through my first breakup, I took time to work on myself and feel my feelings. He went in a relationship with someone immediately, and guess who was coming back a year later? Wasn't me. I was done with the relationship. He was coming back because he didn't deal with his feelings. He was still sad. He was having to deal with the loss. I already dealt with the loss. So feel your feelings so you don't have to deal with it later on down the road. It's pretty common that women deal with their feelings early on and men distract themselves. And that's why a lot of times men come back around because they don't deal with their feelings. They deal with the loss later, like, oh, I miss this person. So that's why you don't want to be that person that later down the road goes back and like it's like, oh, I'm sad. No, you want to deal with that sadness immediately so you don't deal with it later. Who wants to deal with the bull crap later. You want to deal with it right then and there. That way you don't have to deal with it later. You can be healthier and happier later. So definitely feel your feelings. Be aware when you're sulking too much, where you're like, okay, I notice I haven't showered in a week. Be aware of that and be like, okay, I'm gonna give myself moments to be sad and be miserable and pity myself. That's good, do that. And then there's gonna be other moments where you're like, let me get myself together and tell myself I'm a bad bitch, or tell myself that I'm a handsome young guy. Like, you know, whatever it is, get yourself together. And with that feeling you're feeling, something that really helped me was I wrote a letter every day, even sometimes a couple times a day, to my ex at the time. I wrote him a letter to deal with the breakup, and sometimes they were angry, sometimes I was dabbing my notebook, sometimes they were sad, sometimes I was missing him, sometimes they were like hopeful, whatever it was. I allowed my emotions to get out without going to them. So that can be really helpful. And whenever you want to talk to them, instead of talking to them, go and write in your journal, and I promise it's really healing. Which also goes into the topic of leaning on each other for support when you go through the breakup. Absolutely not. That is a don't. Do not rely on each other for support when you're going through the breakup. How awkward is that? Is that you guys are trying to separate, but then you're coming together for that support. It never works out. It just winds up with that get back together, leave, get back together, leave, you know, breakup type of cycle. So you don't want to rely on each other for support or anything that you used to rely on each other for. And also when it comes to relying on each other for support, it's also unhealthy to still hook up. You're still involved with each other. You're not, you know, you guys are maybe doing separate things, but you're still relying on each other for that intimacy. And that's never really healthy. And there's no judgment. There's absolutely no judgment. I'm just speaking from a healthy standpoint or a mental health standpoint. It always winds up not doing well. It always winds up with one person getting hurt, or one person thinking that, you know, you guys are together to some degree. There's always confusion when you get intimate. So it's never a good idea to be intimate with your ex, especially freshly breaking up. It's also not really healthy to care about each other the same way. You guys need to separate yourselves so that way you can go and form healthier relationships in your life. Because what happens is it's very raw when you're going through the breakup process. And so what if they move on or you move on, and then there's that awkward dynamic of, you know, how are you going to deal with this? Like, I still have feelings, I'm uncomfortable that you're with someone, or, you know, I haven't moved on, whatever it is. There's that unhealthy dynamic, and it could be a lot more painful to see that. So that's one reason why you don't want to rely on each other. And two, there's going to be disappointment, because one of you is not going to want to be as involved as the other one. One of you is going to want to maybe venture out and go and do things. The other one's going to want to just kind of keep the relationship the same. And so there will be that disappointment, that hurt there. So you have to understand you're not responsible for each other like you were in the past. Things have to change. The way you talk to each other has to change. The way that you care for each other has to change. You have to allow others to come into your life and their life to be there. So you want to have family and friends that can be there for you and for them, and that can meet some of those needs of like that emotional support, or maybe you need help with some things, whatever it is, just being there for you. Now obviously they can't do certain things, like the intimacy part probably will be gone, but that's fine. You can live without that for a time being. But there's other parts where maybe like you notice that you relied on your partner a lot for emotional support. Now you can see, okay, I can rely on others. Maybe I need to go to therapy. Maybe I need to talk to someone, you know. Maybe I realize I have a hard time connecting with people around me and I need to work on that. So allow other people to be there for you outside of your ex, especially if you're in a very codependent relationship. So don't rely on each other to pick up the pieces, especially because I'm sure they were your go-to person for most things. They're not going to pick up the pieces because you both are the reasons why there are pieces. You can't expect each other to pick up those pieces when they're the problem or you're the problem, which goes into the last thing of being friends with each other. Before you decide if you want to be friends with each other, you guys really need to see if you guys can be apart and really heal some of these wounds and things that have happened, and see if you're okay if they do move on, because you don't want to force yourself to be friends with someone if you can't handle the thought of them moving on. That will really hurt you and your ability to move forward and move on in your life. So you need to make sure you both are on the same page, and there's parts of you that have healed. You're not still relying on them, or they're not still relying on you. You guys have some things resolved before you guys can come together, and that means that there's gonna need to be some space, whatever it is, like a month, a few months, whatever it is, before you guys decide to be friends. And maybe you both decide that you don't want to be friends. Everyone works differently, so don't force yourself to be friends with each other, and don't force yourself to be a friend if you don't want to be a friend. You both have to do what works. Now, there's always that question after you break up of, when do I start dating again? There's no right and wrong answer of when to start dating again. You get to decide when you are ready to date again. But if you notice you are in a spiteful mode, or you're doing it to validate yourself or feel better about yourself, you're probably not ready to start dating again. Or another is that you notice that you are just trying to distract yourself or deal with the pain. That's never really healthy. You want to start to date again when you get excited about seeing people again, or you get excited about a future with someone, and you genuinely feel comfortable being vulnerable again and opening up, and you feel like some parts of you have healed. Like, you can look at your ex without wanting to cry. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. And today we're gonna be talking about breakups. That was kind of corny. Today we're going to be talking about the breakups. If I did that, people would probably think that's offensive. I don't even know what accent that is. On whether you... I can't get my shit together. Like, I get through the first few sentences and then it's like, what are we talking about? Maybe curling my hair has fried my brain. Should I do like... I look like the woman from the woman's poster. Oh my god, the birds are chirping. I'm so excited. That means spring is coming. My dog has been itching like crazy, and you know what, we always think about how we're allergic to our pets and our dogs, but like, what if they're allergic to us? Like,